This channel is for educational purposes only. You and you alone are responsible for your investment decisions. Financial freedom is about having the control of your finances and the freedom to live life on your terms. Close your eyes and envision what that even looks like. Imagine having the flexibility to pursue your interests instead of your employer directing your life. Having the time to start a business, travel the world, spend more time with family or friends, or even pursue creative endeavors. Feel the security and peace of mind that comes with knowing that you have the resources to handle unexpected expenses. You could actually create generational wealth. It is possible and you can do it. In the rest of this video, I outline the rules that I've lived by to achieve just that. Taking care of your health is critical for investors. Investing requires sound decision making and analysis. Being in good health ensures you have the mental clarity to assess opportunities, manage risk, and adapt to market changes. Many of the hard lessons I've learned over the years were a result of not setting clear and defined goals and then periodically checking that progress. So take the time to set some goals with the end in mind. Define why you want to become wealthy. This will motivate you to stay committed. Adding milestones allows you to evaluate your progress and then check whether or not you're on track. If you're off course, just make some minor adjustments. Attention, attention, attention. If you were using credit cards and not paying your balance off in full monthly, stop this video immediately. Go back to step 2 and set a new goal. And I'm seriously not joking. You need to do everything in your power to bring down high interest credit card bills down to zero. Prioritize payments, paying the highest interest first. Consolidate your debt into a lower interest payment if it's possible. Attempt to negotiate with creditors to reduce fees and interest. Work overtime, work the gig economy, whatever it takes. By carrying debt higher than the average home loan, you are keeping bankers rich and yourself poor. Rule 4. Set aside at least one day a month to review your bills and credit card statements. Assure that the charges are valid. Specifically look for unauthorized charges, reoccurring, and double charges. Additionally, set up auto pay for bills and overdraft for bank accounts. This will reduce, if not eliminate, unnecessary bank fees. You work too hard for your money, just give it away. Number 5, live below your means. Now, people are going to struggle with this because you work hard for your money, you've earned it, right? But what I can tell you is the more you're able to invest and save and buy assets, that has a compounding effect over time. And if you do it long enough, you'll come to a point in your life where you make more off passive income than you will off of anything else that you could do in life. If you go out and buy the $50,000 car, that comes with increased insurance, a higher payment, a higher deductible. It'll become infinitely harder to become financially independent and reach your goals. Let me ask you a question. How long do you think it would take if you invested $1,000 a month and got an 8% return to become a millionaire? It would actually take 25 and a half years. And I say that because I'm in no position to give you career advice, but what I can tell you is the careers that pay more will allow you to save more, which will accelerate that 25 and a half years down to something much, much, much lower. If you lost your job tomorrow, how long could you cover your basic expenses, such as housing, groceries, transportation, insurance, all your debts, maybe a mortgage payment, a car payment, car repairs? The point I'm trying to get is the last thing you're going to think of if you lose your job is investing in the stock market. A lot of people will take out their credit cards, they start racking up debt because it's out of necessity. Generally speaking, an emergency fund should have 3 to 6 months of expenses. I typically will set up like a bond ladder, or it needs to be liquid. You need to be able to access it, but you ideally would still like to collect interest on that if possible. So maybe a high interest savings account, something that if you need to tap those funds, they're available. So the burning question for number 8 is, should I seek out the pros? I'm going to say yes. Even though I was burned years and years ago by one, I say yes, yes, yes. And the reason is the mistakes that I've made over the years that have cost me dearly and I've learned from would have been avoided if I had a good fiduciary financial advisor and an expert in taxes. Now, some of the concepts I'm going to teach, most financial advisors aren't even going to talk about, or they might not even understand. But what they can provide is personalized guidance, expert advice, ongoing support, and informed financial decisions. They can recommend investment products, they can help you with taxes, they can help you with estate planning, legal issues. So, yes, there's only so many things that you can do on your own, and at a certain point, you do need to seek out the experts, especially as your wealth grows. The government incentivizes behavior of the public, and they do that through tax credits, tax deductions, and a lot of people call them loopholes. They're not loopholes. The government wants you to do specific things. So, in order to figure out what all these things are, contact a CPA, a financial advisor, tax lawyers, possibly specializing in real estates or trusts. There's so many ways to reduce taxes, and if you have a basic understanding of tax law, then you can avoid them, which allows you to essentially take that money that you've saved and reinvest it, and then it really starts snowballing and compounding. Number 10, risk management. Risk management with assets is such a broad topic that I can't answer it in this video, but what I will say is that diversification, which I'll talk about later, will reduce risk. Now, I have a high tolerance to risk. I will trade on margin and leverage. I had 6 figures of Bitcoin at one point. I like risk, but it's calculated risk. That is not for everybody, right? And a financial planner would never recommend what I just said. So if you follow me, you will see a lot of strategies that I use. Some are very risky and some are very conservative, but I always look at risk before I ever invest any dollar into anything. So number 11. Now, I numbered these kind of very specifically. It's like, hey, this is a checklist. You should start with 1 and then move on to 2 and move on to 3 and so on. So with savings, we're assuming now that your debt's paid off and you understand risk management, all the things I've talked about before. But there's a saying, it takes money to make money, and that's absolutely the truth. So you got to save those first dollars, and then those dollars turn into assets, and those assets turn into larger assets, and it's all part of the process. So it's a habit, and I recommend skimming off a paycheck, whether you put 5% or 10%, and try to automate it if at all possible, because it will grow quicker than you could possibly imagine. Number 12, buy quality assets. I'm actually going to recommend a book. I'm sure you've heard of it, but it's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm going to link to it in the description through the Amazon affiliate thing, but I highly encourage you to buy it, read it, listen to it, get the audiobook, because it will change the way you think about money. Quality assets will perpetually pay you back over time if you buy the right ones. So what are the right ones? Well, that depends. Financial advisors can recommend specific products, but generally speaking, stocks, bonds, real estate, precious metals, collectibles, possibly cryptocurrencies, mutual funds, exchange traded funds, businesses. There's so many. I can't cover them all in one video, but the journey that I'm taking to the $1 Million Challenge absolutely involves all of that. Now, nobody's perfect, and I can't believe I'm going to admit to this, but although I own quite a few assets, I have neglected number 13, which is taking care of your assets. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you own a house, you need to take care of it. You need to make sure it's painted, make sure the roof's good, that the fence isn't falling apart. If you have renters, you need to take care of their needs, because honestly, that's your home, and you're eventually either going to have to sell it or trade up, and you want it just ready to go. So I know in specifically real estate, a lot of landlords will neglect things, and don't do it. Don't do it. It will be a weight that hangs on your shoulders forever. It's just not worth it. All those expenses that you pay to do that, in most cases, are tax deductible. Just take care of your own business, because those are your assets. If I could write diversify on a yellow sticky and come across YouTube and slap it on your forehead, I would. I've heard Kramer refer to it as it is your only free lunch. It is what will save your butt in the tough times. Diversification will save you. For example, the financial crisis, everything was tanking. Houses lost half their values. Well, guess what? If I was in bonds or cash or other asset classes, you would have been okay, right? You could have taken advantage of that carnage. So how do you do that? You allocate, well, one, you could talk to a financial planner and they'll come up with a plan. It's also important to periodically look at your allocations on a percentage basis and adjust over time. For instance, I bought some I bonds a while back when they're paying a ridiculous like 8 or 10% interest, and those have adjusted down and down and down. And there's a certain point it won't make sense anymore to keep those. And so if I'm reviewing my asset classes, say quarterly, I can make those decisions and maximize my returns by shifting that money into something else. Number 15, staying disciplined and patient. Well, if you've gone back and you set up your goals and your milestones and you're reviewing those, say quarterly, and you've made sound investment decisions based on good advice, maybe from a financial planner, then you could sleep well at night knowing that things will work out if you hold them long enough. So I'll give you a personal example. Before the financial crisis and the bubble busting, I bought a home down in Florida with my family. And we literally saw the home, cut in almost half as far as the value. But I knew long term that it was an area we liked. It was a solid investment. And most of the people, they short sold, they ran away. I did not. I rented it and I continue to own it today. And it's worth more than we paid, considerably more. And now we have a vacation home that we're going to eventually be able to use and travel to and become snowbirds. So things have a way of working out if you have the time and ability to hold things long enough, as long as they're good assets. Now, I'll also add, we're 12 minutes into this video, and I'm going to add a little nugget. If you've stuck me out this long, then you might actually have what it takes to become a millionaire. And I'm also planning on flying down to Florida, fully furnishing that home on a future video and setting it up for Airbnb. And I might actually raffle out some time down there where some of the subscribers can come stay. So if that's something that interests you, like and subscribe. Okay, your credit score. Wow, I could say a lot about this. I could probably write a book. Your credit score is infinitely important. It is what the bank uses to decide whether or not they're going to give you a loan. So the higher your score, definitely above 800 stellar credit. If it's in the 500 range, you need to work on that. There's things you can build your credit, you can raise that score, but I'll give you a personal example. Peak of the financial crisis, blood in the water, nobody can get a loan. I got a loan. I had perfect credit. It wasn't an issue. I didn't jump through a lot of hurdles. I paid less in interest than the people around me. You're going to buy a car. You need to take a loan. Guess what? If you don't have credit, you're going to pay a lot more for the payment. And that even rolls back to living within your means. If you buy that $50,000 car and you don't have credit, guess what? You're paying a lot of money to the bank that you'll never get back. So what I recommend is review your credit reports. You could get them free from Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, I believe once a year. There's also credit monitoring that you can sign up for. I'm sure at one point your information has gotten hacked by some company that had your information on a database, so you probably have free credit monitoring. There's fraud alerts that you can start up. You don't want somebody to do identity theft against you and then tear up your credit. All right, I'm going to start number 17 with an example. Plan for big purchases. Most of America wants instant gratification. They want that car today. They want that TV today. I've always run my life slightly different. If there's a TV I want, I wait for it to come on sale. Do you have a coupon? 10% off. I'm not being cheap. I just don't need it that badly, right? I drove a Tesla Model S in 2013, I think it was. It blew me away. I knew I would eventually own a Tesla, but I was not going to spend $100,000 on a depreciating asset. I put my money in for the Cybertruck. Elon's asking $100,000 to $120,000 for that thing. Once he runs out of buyers, which he eventually will, they're going to have to lower the price. That same truck's going to be $70,000 in a few years. Now, I hesitate on that example because if you bought it today, you could probably sell it for a lot more because it's a supply and demand issue, right? But my name hasn't come up on the list, so we'll see how that one goes. But I eventually did buy the Tesla Model 3 because it was less than half the price, and it does essentially the same thing. It gets me to point A to point B with a smile on my face. I planned for that big purchase. Now, how did I do that? I knew I was going to buy one, so I started paying payments to myself in an account that generated interest. Paid the payment, paid the payment, paid the payment, like I bought it. So when it came time to get the car, I essentially wrote a check. Now, I could have taken out a loan because I have stellar credit, but I don't need to, so I didn't. But that's just how I run my life. Number 18, negotiating for goods and services. America in general is terrible at this, with the exception of maybe a used car. Most countries you go to, it's just standard practice that you dicker on whatever you're buying. And so it's an uncomfortable skill that you can absolutely learn. And the importance of it is every dollar that you're able to save is more money that you can contribute to a retirement account or another asset. So let me briefly talk about this. Becoming a good negotiator involves preparation and effective communication. So do your research about the product or service you're trying to get. Set some clear objectives. Know your limits. So if you're willing to spend, $500 on something, stick to your guns. Build some rapport with whoever you're dealing with and try to focus on win-win solutions. So here's an example of how I apply that. I need to get my home painted, and I would get 3 quotes, and let's say they're $8, $9, and $10,000. If I felt the middle quote was going to do the best job, that's the one I would absolutely go for, but I would try to get it for that $8,000 price. So the way I'd approach that, I'd start building rapport with the painter. Hey, I see you're a veteran. I have a budget of $8,000 and I really, really, really want to support my military veterans, but I just can't break that budget. I got another company that's willing to do it for 8. Can you match that? You never know how that's going to turn out. And literally that took me 30 seconds and I could save $1,000. Now, if you walk into a Target, for example, and I've actually done this multiple times, they price match. I pulled up on Amazon the same item for $100 less. Literally takes me 30 seconds and they price match it. Checking out for $100 less. That's $100 more that I can apply to an asset or take my wife out to dinner. Or I might ask the sales representative, hey, have you seen this product go on sale? And I've literally had sales associates say, oh yeah, it's going on sale this weekend. You never know how that's going to turn out. Number 19, start and continuously fund a retirement account. Now, I'm not a tax advisor or financial advisor, but here's what I can tell you from personal experience. 1, a 401k. If your company matches any percentage of your income, at least at the bare minimum, depending on your situation, sign up for that. That's free money that your company's giving you. If you can afford to do that, and if you can't afford to do that, you need to go back to number 1 and start over in this entire video. But if you can afford to do it, do it. A Roth IRA. Typically, they're great. They're great for everybody. I shouldn't say they're great for everybody. They are good typically for younger people because you can take advantage of tax-free compound interest, meaning you contribute your money, it grows and grows and grows. The initial contribution is taxed, the rest of it is not. When you hit your golden years, which I'm assuming you're going to, you will thank me. An IRA, depending on your tax situation, it might be better to go with an IRA in any particular year, and then later you could potentially convert it to a Roth IRA. But again, talking to a tax advisor that knows your specifics is the best thing to do in this scenario. If you have the gumption, you can go out to the IRS site and look all that up. Number 20, consider your significant other, your kids, whatever your life situation looks like with relationships. I bring this up. It's taboo. People don't normally talk about it, but money in relationships can create severe problems. And if that ends up in divorce, if you are not on the same page, it could be messy for years to come. Now, I had a friend, a coworker, who wanted to sit down with me. He knew this was years ago, and he knew I was doing well, and he saw what I was doing, and he's like, how is that possible? And so I was like, hey, let's go get a coffee. I'll show you. I got no secrets. And I showed him like some of the things I was doing with options at the time. And basically I handed him the keys of the kingdom. And I checked back with him about a month later. And all of a sudden I found out he was in the middle of divorce. I've touched back with him a year, 2 years. He's got kids. He's paying child support. It's a mess. And I feel so bad for the guy. He would be well off right now had he not gone through that experience. Now, I'm not saying not to get a divorce, or get married. That's not at all what I'm saying. When it's good, it's right, and you just got to go for it. But I just bring it out there because you got to be aware. Number 21, get uncomfortable. Let me reach out and just give you a hug. If you've made it this far, I am confident if you follow these 21 steps that you have a much greater chance of success than people that ignore this. This is your bedrock, the foundation of everything that I build off of. Let me talk about getting uncomfortable. I actually did this in my early 20s. I was in an apartment. I was engaged. I was getting married. I could afford the apartment. It wasn't a stretch, but I knew it. If I could get into a house and could afford it, that it was the better option. I ran the numbers. That's a whole nother video. But so I had good credit. I applied for the loan. I put money down. I got it. it was a stretch. I don't want to say I couldn't afford it, but it was a stretch even with my wife's income. So what did we do? We got a roommate. I finished off the basement. We had a roommate from work and then another one and even a third one. What did that allow us to do? We did a 15-year loan. We paid it off, I think, in like 7 years as our income went up. We owned a house before I turned, I think, 29, something along those lines. Get uncomfortable. This generation's going to have to get creative. Homes are 8x what I paid for that house. It's insane what things cost right now. Appreciating assets held long enough will benefit you in most cases. It depends on your time horizon, and there's too many factors that I can't even talk about right now. But if you can get creative and get in a home, renting rooms, uh, house hacking, I believe they call it now, do it. It will benefit you in the future so many times over you can't even imagine. One more example. I had a friend that was coming down to become a doctor, and he was going to go to school for chiropractic. Ryan, if you're listening, it's an example. So he was unwilling to have a roommate while he was going to school. He went in crazy debt. He didn't want to get uncomfortable. Now, he's a doctor. I'm sure he makes great money, and I'm sure his student debt's paid off. However, what would have that look like if one of his not coworkers, students going to the same school, they could have pinged ideas off each other, they could have split the rent, split the utilities, split cable, what a trash, whatever else that looks like. He could have cut his living expenses in half. Get uncomfortable. Make sure to tune in Friday for my first stock purchase for the $1 Million Challenge.